Hi everyone, I'm Hextasy, and today we're going to be playing through a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon HeartGold, but before each gym, I'll spin a wheel, and whatever type it lands on will be the only type we can use until we reach the next gym. So we'll need to plan and think carefully about what Pokémon we want, so we don't end up in a situation where, say, we roll ghost types and can only use a Ghastly for a good portion of the game. We need to decide on a starter too. Grass types are plentiful, but Chikorita isn't particularly powerful. Totodile won't have too many good water type companions for the first 3 gyms, and they won't evolve until after the second gym. Cyndaquil, on the other hand, has a guaranteed early game buddy if we pick up the Slugma egg, and Cyndaquil evolves early, so they feel like the obvious choice. So we name our Chikorita Holly. Professor Elm sends us to grab a Pokemon egg, and Holly nearly dies to a level 4 Pidgey, so we have to get a little training in before continuing, but we do go a little overboard, and they're level 9 by the time we face our rival for the first time, and we naturally destroy him. Returning to Elm's lab, we get to name our rival, and we of course name him something dumb. We sit through the catching tutorial, and I'll explain the naming theme now. We have a completely different naming theme based off the primary type of each Pokemon. So a grass type like Chikorita is named after plants. The normal type Sentret we find on Route 29 gets named Ferret because it's a normal-ass animal. And the rock-type Geodude on Route 46 gets named Topaz after the gemstone. On Route 30, we find a Caterpie, and we'll be naming bugs after bugs and other creepy crawlies. We could be boring and just name them Butterfly, but I get a little silly and go with Scorpion. Early game, we'll be focusing on switch training, so we can get a good amount of EVs on our Pokemon before somebody eventually has to solo an entire section of the game. Moving on to Route 31, we catch Belladonna the Bellsprout, and in the Dark Cave, we find a Zubat. We'll be naming our poison types after things you probably shouldn't ingest, like fentanyl. We arrive in Violet City and find a Rattata in the Sprout Tower. We could be boring and name them Rat, but go with Elephant. We could get a Pokemon egg from Primo and hatch it here, but there is currently no advantage to doing that. We head on to Route 32 to catch Dandelion the Hoppip, and it's worth noting that not a single Pokemon in this game has flying as their primary type. So any flying types will always get the naming theme for their other type. We finish up our training, evolve Scorpion into a Butterfree, and it's time to take on the first gym leader. Between all of our Pokemon, we have Grass, Poison, Flying, Ground, Rock, Bug, and Normal types. So they all go on a wheel, we spin it, and we get Bug. So it's up to Scorpion to beat the Flying type gym leader, Falkner. He starts with a Pidgey, who deals 4 damage with Tackle before going down to Confusion, and Pidgeotto comes in. We hit them with a Stun Spore to paralyze them before we're hit by a Gust, and we then land Confusion on the next turn before taking another Gust. It really looks like this battle could go either way, but they can't move over the next couple turns, and Scorpion manages to win the fight. We pick up the Togepi egg and return to Cherry Grove City to hatch it and name the Togepi Cat. We head down to Route 32, trying to avoid every possible trainer, except that one, and we pick up the Old Rod at the bottom of the route. Adding water types to the wheel will just hurt us right now, but it'll be useful later. In the Union Cave, we find a Sandshrew, and we'll be naming our grounds types after rocks. We name Sandshrew Marble, make it to Azalea Town, and begin taking on Team Rocket. We use a Repel so we don't find anything down here in the well, because we don't want to catch a Psychic-type Slowpoke just before the Bug-type gym. We fight Team Rocket Executive Proton, but Scorpion is the best possible Pokemon for us to use here, and she easily beats his team. Time to fight the next gym leader. We haven't caught any new types, so the wheel is unchanged. And we get Bug again. Looks like Scorpion has to solo another gym leader. Bugsy starts with his Scyther, who moves first and uses Focus Energy, increasing their critical hit ratio, before we land a Stun Spore to paralyze them. Scyther then powers through Paralysis to land a critical hit quick attack to bring Scorpion below half HP, and we land a Gust to take out close of half of theirs. Scyther then powers through Paralysis again, and lands a second critical hit quick attack to kill Scorpion and end this run. Amazing. Well, we grab ourselves a new Holly the Chikorita, fight our rival, this time at a lower level, and still bring the smackdown. I realized naming our rival Idiot was incredibly immature of me, so we'll give him a dignified name this time. Unfortunately, Shathid is one letter too long, so we'll have to settle for Shathat. When I was writing the script, I noticed Shathid wasn't being marked by spell check, and for a second I was afraid I was making a joke about an actual name, so I looked it up and found out that Shithead is a card game. Well, moving on, we can start catching Pokemon, starting with Elephant the Rattata on Route 29, Bird the Spearow on Route 46, Scorpion the Caterpie on Route 30, Belladonna the Bellsprout on Route 31, Dandelion the Hoppip on Route 32, and Topaz the Geodude in Dark Cave. We'll be skipping over the Sprout Tower for now since we can only find Ghastlies there, and Ghost types are the last thing we want. We'll probably use this Sprout Tower encounter to hatch an egg later. After evolving Scorpion into a Butterfree, we spin the wheel, and this time we land on normal types to take on Falkner. Falkner starts with his Pidgey, and we start with Bird, who just misses a KO with their Fury attack, but get the KO next turn with a Peck. Pidgeotto comes in, and we begin using Leers to drop their defense while taking blows from Tackle and Gust. An Oranberry heals them up enough just to let them survive one more blow, and after we're brought to just 2 HP, we swap out to Elephant, who can take them out with just 2 quick attacks to win us the fight. We get and hatch the Togepi egg at Cherry Grove City, who we can now actually use since they are normal type in this game, and after some training and a lot of running in circles, we boost their friendship enough to evolve them into a Togetic. In the Union Cave, we catch Marble the Sandshrew, and take on Team Rocket in the Slowpoke well, once again repelling through. Both because we don't want Slowpoke yet, and because we would rather catch Zubat elsewhere. Rocket Executive Proton once again gets annihilated by us having access to decent Psychic-type moves, and we help Kurt rescue the Slowpoke in the well. Kurt's granddaughter tries to give us his phone number, and we refuse. She seems really offended, and we don't have the heart to tell her it's because her grandpa is a nerd and would just cramp our style. Time to fight Bugsy again. We spin the wheel, and it once again lands on Bug. So Scorpion gets their second try at beating Bugsy and his Scyther. This time, they open with a Leer, dropping our defense, and we land our Stun Spore to paralyze them. We then land a Gust while they use Focus Energy, then lose half our HP to Quick Attack, and land another Gust to bring them low, and activate their Citrus Berry. Scyther can't move due to Paralysis, and our Gust fails to KO, letting Bugsy fully heal before our next Gust lands. Scyther fails to move again, Gust brings them into the red, but they then power through to bring us to just 7 HP with a Quick Attack before we land one more Gust for the KO. We level up and can then one-shot both his Metapod and Kakuna with Gust to win the fight. This puts Scorpion at the level cap, and we still have a fight with Shathat. But we can find more bug types in the next area. He starts with a Ghastly that gets outsped and destroyed by Scorpion's confusion, and Quilava comes in. We land a stun spore, stopping them from moving, and begin spamming out confusion, hoping we get the small chance to confuse them, but never do while they keep hitting us with smoke screens. Luckily, our Compound Eyes ability boosts our accuracy, so we never miss and land a gust to get the KO. All that's up to Zubat, who we outspeed and take out with a single confusion to win the fight. We get access to the Ilex Forest and are able to find a Paris, who we catch and name Cicada. With them, we're able to complete the Farfetch puzzle and meet the Headbutt move tutor, who lets us get Pokemon from trees, like Spider the Spinarak on Route 34, Monkey the Apom in Azalea Town, both given boring names, but I get silly for Bee the Heracross caught on Route 33. We get boring again when we catch Owl the Hoot Hoot at Violet City, and then head to Route 35 where we catch Arsenic the female Nidoran, and Cyanide the male Nidoran at Route 36. Finally, we catch Moonflower the Sunkern in the National Park. We'll be skipping over our Goldenrod City encounter for now, until we figure out if we need an Eevee or a Pokemon from the Game Corner. We spin the wheel for the type we'll be using against Whitney, and we get the Flying type. This could be a problem if her Miltank gets a good rollout going. But she starts with the Clefairy, while we start with Dandelion. We use Bullet Seed, and even hitting 5 times, it doesn't even take out half of their HP. But Clefairy just uses Mimic to copy Bullet Speed, which will do almost no damage to us. Whitney agrees with that assessment, and after only getting hit by a 2-hit Bullet Seed, they start going for a double slap, which misses. We get another 2-hit Bullet Seed and are hit by a 4-hit double slap, then use Synthesis to heal, while Clefairy uses Metronome, pulling Dragon Breath, which paralyzes us. Well, that's just super. Clefairy then uses Metronome to get Seismic Toss to bring us to half HP before we use Bullet Seed and miss the KO by seemingly a single hit point. Whitney heals Clefairy to full HP as we use Synthesis, and then change our strategy. After getting hit by a double slap, we use Tail Whip to drop Clefairy's defense. The next attack misses, and we get another Tail Whip off. Clefairy uses Metronome and gets Force Palm, not doing a lot, but we can't move this turn. Clefairy then pulls Sunny Day with their next Metronome, which could be beneficial for us. So after we bring them low with a couple Bullet Seeds, we use Synthesis to fully heal ourselves, and then we take them out with one more Bullet Seed, and Whitney's ace Pokemon, Miltank, is in. The cow immediately tries to seduce Dandelion, and they can't move. So we swap them out for Owl, who gets hit by a Stomp. We get hit by a second Stomp before Owl can use Reflect, allowing them to survive a third Stomp and use Growl to drop Miltank's attack. We then swap to Cat as Miltank uses Rollout, only dealing 4 damage on their first hit, but that'll only grow stronger with more hits. We tank the second hit and use Yawn. And after we survive the third hit with over half of our HP left, we use Charm to further drop their attack as they fall asleep. Miltank's Lumberry instantly cures them, and we swap out to Owl, not realizing that their rollout was reset despite not actually having been interrupted, and Miltank uses Stomp to kill Owl. Their sacrifice was kinda pointless, but at least we know Cat is safe when we bring them back in. We get hit by a Stomp that flinches them, and Miltank then uses Attract, but we get our Yawn off. We switch to Bird as they use Stomp, not dealing a whole lot, and they fall asleep. We get off a few Leers to drop their defense, and once Miltank wakes up, we start trying to land Fury attacks. Except we end up missing half of them, and Whitney heals, so we'll have to swap out. Dandelion is back in, and they get hit by our rollout. We use Stun Spore to paralyze them after we take the second rollout hit, and we then use Synthesis to heal ourselves before a third rollout does big damage. Unless we heal, a fourth rollout will definitely kill Dandelion. We try to use Synthesis, but are fully paralyzed. And so is Miltank. We try to keep landing bullet seeds, but Miltank lands an attract, and we're failing more than we're succeeding. So we swap between Cat and Dandelion because the dumb cow keeps seducing these simps and healing. But eventually, Cat gets a good opening and lands an extrasensory for the KO to finally win this fight. Owl becomes the first resident of the dead Pokemon box, and the increased level cap will let us use Scorpion again. We evolve Bird into a Fearow, then find a Growlithe on Route 37. For fire types, our naming theme will just be things that are hot, but before we catch Growlithe, they use Roar to end the encounter. We make it to Ecruteak City shortly after, where we beat a Rocket Grunt in the dance hall to get the Surf HM. Then head west to Route 38 where we catch a Magnemite, adding both electric and steel to the wheel. And we'll have to decide a naming theme for our electric types, and I settle on naming them after the cosplay Pikachu costumes. So we name Magnemite PhD, and continue west where we meet Balbaboon, who tells us about the Safari Zone, which we'll be hitting up later. Route 39 is where we catch Bull the Tauros. Then we head east to Mount Mortar, where we find a Machop. Fighting types will be named after muscles, so we name them Biceps, and further down on Route 42, we catch Bell the Mareep. We return to Ecruteak City to catch an Execute from a Headbutt tree and name them Palm Tree. We then hit up the Burn Tower and catch Nicotine the Coughing, and have another battle with Shitat. Once again, Scorpion annihilates his Ghastly, but he decides to actually attack with Cool Lava this time, forcing us to swap out after paralyzing them. So we send in Bird, who beats them with a few pecks, then Magnemite is in. We swap to Cat, who avoids the incoming Supersonic, and lands a one-hit KO Flamethrower. Their Zubat comes in last, just to go down to an extrasensory, and that wins us the fight. The next gym leader is Ghost type, meaning if Psychic is pulled, we could be in trouble. So we decide to get our Goldenrod City encounter now, an Abra named Edison. We put the new types on the wheel, give it a spin, and it is normal. Definitely the best type we could have gotten for this. We evolve Elephant into Eradicate and begin the battle with Morty. His first Ghastly is instantly killed by Elephant's Crunch, and so does the Haunter that follows. Gengar is in, landing a Sucker Punch before barely surviving 2 crunches thanks to their Citrus Berry, and they put Elephant to sleep with the Hypnosis. We swap to Monkey as they heal, and after being hit by a Sucker Punch, we land a critical hit Shadow Claw for the KO, and all he has left is Haunter number 2, who also goes down to a single Shadow Claw to win us the fight. With the ability to use Surf in the overworld unlocked, we head to Olivine City, where we can catch our first water type, a Tentacool. What will the naming theme for our water types be? Sea creatures? Bodies of water? No, we'll be naming them after the songs of Danish-Norwegian Eurodance band Aqua, starting by naming Tentacool Barbie Girl. We climb to the top of the lighthouse, Jasmine gives us the quest to get Amphiros's medicine, and we make sure to grab the good rod before heading out. Luckily, Bull the Tauros can learn Surf for some reason, and by fishing on the way to Cyanwood City, we can find Dr. Jones the Corsola on Route 40, and Lollipop the Magikarp on Route 41. Arriving at Cyanwood, we get the medicine and mug this chump, stealing his Shuckle for our Cyanwood City encounter. We'll give them a new name later. Maybe. If I remember. While we're in the city, we decide to do the Eugene battle, for some reason. Bull gets put to sleep by Drowsy, so we swap to Monkey to take them out with the Shadow Claw, then Electrode comes in. We dodge a Screech, then land a Scratch for solid damage, but their static ability paralyzes us, so we swap to Elephant on a Screech. Then tank a Thunder before landing a Headbutt, and their static ability paralyzes us. We send in Bull, who takes too much damage from Thunder and won't survive another before they wake up. So we decide to sacrifice Bird. Except they dodge the Thunder on the switch in, and then get outsped and hit by the next one and dies. But now Cat can come in. They also dodge a Thunder and land an extrasensory, leaving Electrode with seemingly 1 HP. They avoid a second Thunder and finish them off with another attack. His Haunter comes in and then goes down to a single extrasensory after having using Curse, winning us the fight. Maybe we should not have done this completely optional battle. Anyways, we make the trek back to Olivine City and give the medicine to Jasmine. This causes Boba Fett to call us and tell us the Safari Zone is open, giving us a lot more encounters we might need for the upcoming few battles, especially since we'll be able to guarantee encounters for our weakest types on those routes. So we head all the way back to Cyanwood. Nothing can be caught in the Cliff Edge Gate, but in the Cliff Cave, we can use repels to guarantee a Steelix. We'll be naming our primary steel types after metal bands and go with Sabaton for them. Route 47 has My Oh My the Chinchou, and on Route 48 we catch Bagworm the Pineco. We try to enter the Safari Zone, but it turns out we are broke and don't have enough money to get in. So we go beat up the first trainer we see for the money, and our unfortunate victims just happen to be the Innuendo couple. We enter the Safari Zone, look at what Pokemon are available in the zones we have, and find the one I want. There is only one viable encounter for us in this area, a Kangaskhan that we are almost certain to fail to catch. But to my surprise, we actually managed to catch Kangaroo the Kangaskhan. I can't wait to never roll normal types on the wheel again. Speaking of the wheel, we have a good number of Pokemon now, so we enter our new types on the wheel, give it a spin, and it is water types. So we evolve all our water types, and it's time to take on Chuck. We start with Dr. Jones against his Primeape, hoping their rock typing will bait them into using Focus Punch, but they use Double Team. Our first Bubble Beam still hits, and you may be wondering, Hex, why didn't you teach Surf to Corsola?
Good question.
Primeape then uses Rock Slide for a decent bit of damage, and we land another Bubble Beam. They then start winding up Focus Punch, and our Bubble Beam misses. Dr. Jones gets their skull caved in and dies. So we have to swap to Lollipop, who finishes them off with a Strength, and Poliwrath comes in. After taking a Strength, they put Lollipop to sleep with a Hypnosis, and we swap to Barbie Girl to drop some Acids, but they won't survive long, so we switch Lollipop back in to get the Intimidate attack drop and guaranteeing they won't use Hypnosis. We then swap My Oh My in to get the win with a Thunderbolt. Shortly after the battle, I realized there's a couple more water types we could have gotten before the fight. First, we go to Violet City to get the Wooper Egg from Primo, and in the nearby ruins of Alph, we begin fishing until we find a Poliwag. So, we got a problem here. I actually only know 4 Aqua songs. So we have to look up a list, and I end up picking Bumblebees for Poliwag. We boogie on over to Mahogany Town, where we hatch the Wooper Egg, naming them Friday, and begin heading towards the Lake of Rage. We are so poor that Team Rocket lets us through the gate without paying, and we have Elephant give themselves a concussion while headbutting trees until we find Moth the Venonat at the lake. Heading back to Route 43, we catch Ren the Pidgeotto, and we then have My Oh My murder the Red Gyarados. We then evolve Friday into a Quagsire, and Bumblebees all the way up into a Poliwrath with the help of a Water Stone that can be gotten from the Pokathlon. We then watch Lance murder some random dude before we help him storm the Team Rocket base. We go up against Rocket Executive Petrel, and oh, he's already lost. But we're up against another Executive and a random Grunt next, but Lance has his hacked-in underlevel Dragonite that helps us make short work of their Pokemon. We then go up against the catchable Electrodes in the base and name the one we catch Popstar. While leaving the base, we get a call from Professor Oak, and he says, and I quote, "Hello, this is Professor Oak. You're catching a lot of Pokemon, aren't you?" And then he hangs up. What a weird dude. Anyways, it's time to take on the next gym leader, Price. So we spin the wheel and get bug types. Not bad for going up against ice types. So we evolve what we can and get into the fight. Price starts with a Seal, not even an ice type, which is the reason they survive a Brick Break from B, and can land an Icy Wind to slow us down. Price heals, but we get a higher damage roll on our next Brick Break and get the KO. Dugong is in next, dealing okay damage with an Aurora Beam before going down to Brick Break, and his Ace Piloswine comes in. They change the weather with Hail, and we then land a Brick Break, just missing out on the KO. We get hit by a Blizzard for solid damage, and then our next Brick Break misses. Today, I learned Piloswine can have the Snow Cloak ability. We swap to Moth, who loses close to half their HP to a Blizzard, and we then go for a Psybeam, and miss, getting hit by another Blizzard. And after the hail damage, we're down to 2 HP. So we swap to Spider, who takes big damage from Blizzard, and it turns out Spider is slower than Piloswine and gets killed by another Blizzard. But at least we can bring B back in safely, and one more Brick Break KOs them to win the fight. Right after that, we're taking on Jasmine, and the role we get here is incredibly important, because it determines the type we'll be using for another rival battle, and for beating Team Rocket in Goldenrod City. And we roll Grass types. They have the numbers advantage since we can have a full team, but they are disadvantaged in almost every other way. We'll need to get stones to evolve our Pokemon, so we do some Pokathlon events to get Leaf Stones, and we 100% win the Bug Catching contest to get the Sunstone. So we can now start evolving all of our Grass types into their final forms, and given that half the trainers in this game refuse to evolve their Pokemon, we can put stat totals as another advantage we'll have. Moving on to that battle with Jasmine, she starts with a Magnemite, and we start with Palm Tree. We get paralyzed by a Thunder Wave and dodge a Supersonic before we can take them out with 2 Confusions. Magnemite 2 comes in, suffering the same fate as the first one. Steelix is out next, and it hits us with a Screech, cutting our defense in half before we can use Reflect. So we swap to Dandelion on another Screech, and then use Leech Seed before Steelix misses a third Screech. We swap to Belladonna, who paralyzes Steelix, and then finally bring in Holly, who sets up Reflect again, and after a couple Magical Leafs, Steelix goes down to win the fight. Right after, Elm calls us and tells us Team Rocket is at the radio tower, so we gotta skedaddle on over there and put the kibosh on that. But first, we go around the region and start throwing hands with everyone we can find, so we can build up some money to send to our mom. This lets her buy items for us, namely berries that reduce super effective damage. Team Rocket is packing oodles of poison types, and the big bad at the end has a Houndoom, so we'll need berries to reduce fire and poison type damage. Once we finish our massacre, we talk to the delivery man, and we immediately get berries to reduce poison damage, but we don't get the fire reduction berries, so we just gotta take on Team Rocket without them. Luckily, most of Team Rocket is just a bunch of chumps that we can blow through with ease. Executive Petrel tries to waste our time with a full team of Pokemon, but each one is outsped and one-shot by Palm Tree. We take a brief moment to beat the snot out of Chatat. Palm Tree beats his Golbat, Belladonna beats his Haunter, but not by much, admittedly. Holly beats his Quilava, Cicada beats his Sneasel, and Moonflower nearly fumbles against Magnemite, but pulls off the win in the end. We get the Radio Tower keycard, watch Palm Tree one-shot the entire team of another Rocket exec, and he would absolutely do the same to Ariana if she didn't have a Dark-type Murkrow. So we get Belladonna to beat them, but then they get put to sleep by her Vileplume. So we swap to Dandelion, who takes big damage from an Acid, so we have to U-turn to Holly, who gets put to sleep. We bring in Cicada, who gets put to sleep, and we swap to Belladonna, who can tank Vileplume's Acids best. We just need them to wake up and land one attack. They're down to 19 HP. They don't wake up and get hit by an Acid, and they survive off of 1 HP. They wake up, land an Acid of their own for the KO to win the fight, and all that's left is to fight Archer. Before fighting the big bad guy, we check with the delivery man to see if Mom bought us any Oka berries while we were decimating a criminal organization, but no such luck. So we start the fight with Archer without them, but I have a plan. It's not a good one, but it's a plan. We start with Holly against his Houndour and use Reflect to cut the damage we take from physical moves in half. We swap to Dandelion to paralyze them and use Leech Seed, and Dandelion gets burned by a Fire Fang. We swap back to Holly to set up Reflect again, and then we swap out to Moonflower, and it's time to put our plan into action. We are going to use Substitute to protect ourselves, and while Houndour is paralyzed, we'll set up Growths to boost our damage. We will then use Sunny Day to activate Moonflower's Chlorophyll ability, doubling their speed, and they will one-shot Archer's Houndoom before it can move. But there's an issue here. You may have noticed, this Houndour refuses to be paralyzed for even a single turn, and they're just whittling down our HP lower and lower. But eventually, they finally get fully paralyzed, and we get up our first growth before Houndour goes down to Leech Seed damage, and Coughing comes in. We should have just given up on the strategy, but I love making bad decisions, and we use Sunny Day after Coughing destroys our substitute. We are now faster than Coughing and take them out with a single Solar Beam. I don't expect it to take out Houndoom, but it should do a decent bit of damage. Too bad, we'll never know how much it does because Houndoom is still faster and kills Moonflower. Turns out, we probably shouldn't rely on a Pokemon with a speed stat of 32 to be a sweeper. I just saw Chlorophyll and not the abysmal speed. So in the end, we just ended up making the one Pokemon we were worried about even stronger. We send in Holly, who survives a Fire Fang and gets up a Reflect before dying to a second. Belladonna loses a third of their HP to Fire Fang and paralyzes Houndoom before we begin throwing out Acids. And just like Houndour, Houndoom refuses to be fully paralyzed. Belladonna was holding an Oranberry, healing 10 of their HP, and they survive a Fire Fang off of 10 HP, allowing them to get off one more Acid before dying, and we bring in Palm Tree, who can finish off Houndoom with a Wood Hammer to win the fight. Right after the fight, we get a call from Mom saying she bought something for us. I am fully expecting this to be the Oka Berry, but it's a Choice Scarf. Nice. We can now enter new routes and catch new Pokemon. On Route 44, we replenish our grass numbers a bit by catching Hyacinth the Tangela, who we immediately evolve into a Tangrowth. In the Ice Cave, we catch Ice Cream the Swinub, who adds Ice types to the type wheel. Route 45 has Granite the Gligar, and I remember we can skip ahead a little to the Tojo Falls. For whatever reason, I thought we could catch a Lapras here, but the only viable encounter here are from the Zubat and Slowpoke families. Same as the Slowpoke well, so we can get both Pokemon now, and it was kinda pointless to hold off on them. In the end, we get Fentanyl the Zubat, and in the falls, we get Jesus the Slowpoke. It's time to take on the next gym leader, we spin the wheel, and get flying again. Pretty solid type for this. We evolve everything we can, and take on the final gym leader, Claire. We both start with Gyarados, but ours knows Thunderbolt, so the outcome of this fight is quite predictable. That's right, it ends with her swapping her Gyarados out for one of her Dragonairs. They handle Thunderbolts well, but then barely survive Ice Fang and land a Thunder Wave to paralyze Lollipop. We can't move and get hit by a Dragon Pulse, so we swap to Cat, who needs to tank 2 Dragon Pulses before landing an Extra Sensory for the KO. Dragonair number 2 comes in and paralyzes us before being hit by Extra Sensory, and we have to swap out to Ren, who loses a third of their HP to Dragon Pulse before taking out Dragonair with a Fly. Her Ace Kingdra comes in, losing a decent bit of HP to Fly before they can miss Hydro Pump, and we swap to Dandelion as they miss yet another Hydro Pump. We Leech Seed and paralyze them before U-turning to Fentanyl, who beats them with a Wing Attack, and Gyarados comes back in. Their Intimidate ability drops our attack, and Claire heals them, but we wipe out more than half their HP with a critical hit Wing Attack, and we then land a Poison Fang, also a critical hit to net us the KO and the win. We head into the Dragon's Den, and we don't want to catch a Dratini here, but I want to at least try to catch something from every area, except for Sprout Tower, which I had forgotten about, and Dratini is the only viable encounter here. The only fitting name for the dragon types being added to the wheel is to name them after legendary things, so we name our Dratini Regirock. We talk to the old man at the back of the cave to get our badge, and we'll be catching the last few Pokemon of the run now. We grab the Slugma egg from Primo and hatch it in Blackthorn City, naming them Oven. We head into the Whirl Islands to catch 80s the Krabby, pick up the Master Ball, catch Single Moms the Ho-Oh at the Bell Tower, get Goat the Doduo in Route 27, fish up Sunshine the Shelder on Route 26, and finally, we find Limestone the Donphan in Victory Road. While we're in Victory Road, we have our final battle with Shathat, and he makes the mistake of starting with his Sneasel against the Lollipop, who proceeds to set up a half-dozen Dragon Dances and one-shot his entire team. We're finally at Indigo Plateau, and we spin the wheel to see what type we'll be using against the Elite Four. Looks like it's Water, one of the best types we could have got. What? We're stuck with Ice types. We have a grand total of 2 of them, Ice Cream and Sunshine. So we EV train them to have maximum speed and offensive stats, evolve Ice Cream into a Mamoswine, Sunshine into a Cloyster, and usually I set the level we start the gauntlet at to match the level of the 4th member's Ace, but for this run I felt that matching Lance's level 50 Dragonite was the only chance we had at winning. So let's see how it goes. Starting with the Psychic type trainer, Will. He starts with the Xatu, and we start with Ice Cream, who outspeeds them and lands a one-hit KO Ice Fang. Slowbro comes in, losing over half their HP to an Earthquake, and they then use Curse to boost their defense, but that doesn't save them from a second Earthquake. Jinx is in next, and because we want to preserve Earthquake's power points, we use Strength, which just misses the KO and we're hit by a Psychic. Will heals Jinx, but they still go down before being able to move again, and his Executor and second Xatu both go down to a single Ice Fang to win the fight. Koga, the Poison type trainer, is next, and he starts with an Ariados against Ice Cream. They survive an Ice Fang and hit us with a Giga Drain before going down to a second attack. Fortress comes in, so we swap to Sunshine on a Swift. They manage to get a layer of Toxic Spikes off before going down to Brine, and Venomoth comes in, only to get destroyed by a critical hit Ice Beam. Muk is out next, so we swap to Ice Cream, who gets poisoned on the switch in, and they have to eat a Gunk Shot before landing a one-hit KO Earthquake. All Koga has left is his Crobat, and they use Double Team, causing our Ice Fang to miss. So we swap to Sunshine, who gets hit by a Wing Attack before taking out Crobat with an Ice Beam to win this battle. The fighting type trainer Bruno is next, and he is who we have to be most worried about. He starts with a Hitmontop, and we bring Ice Cream in, who moves first and lands a one-hit KO Earthquake. Hitmonlee is also taken out with a single Earthquake, and so is his Hitmonchan, but then Machamp comes in. We use Earthquake, and it's barely not enough. Machamp uses Cross Chop, and we can say goodbye to Ice Cream. But Ice Cream does not want to say goodbye. They are an absolute unit and survive off of 15 HP, taking out Machamp with a second Earthquake. It was wrong of me to ever doubt our Cream team. We swapped Sunshine to conserve power points and beat Onix with a Surf to win this fight. The Dark Trainer Karen is next, starting with an Umbreon against Ice Cream, who uses Ice Fang. This always said Ice Fang for decent damage, and they then use Double Team, but they can't avoid an Earthquake, which takes them out. Houndoom comes in, goes down to Earthquake. Vileplume can't handle an Ice Fang. Her Gengar survives Ice Fang, but flinches. Karen heals as we use Ice Shard, which takes out half their HP. So we use another, but Gengar survives off of seemingly 1 HP. They use Focus Blast and miss. One more Ice Shard takes them out, and Murkrow goes down to an Ice Fang to win the fight. If there is anything that can stop the absolute rampage our Cream team is on, it's our final opponent, the champion, the Flying type specialist, Dragon Tamer Lance. He starts with the Gyarados with the Intimidate ability, so we have to start with Sunshine, who takes out about half of their HP with an Ice Beam before being hit by Dragon Pulse. There's no guarantee we get the kill, so we swap to Ice Cream on a Flail, then we finish them off with an Ice Fang. Charizard comes in, and we switch back to Sunshine, expecting them to use Fire Fang, but they use Air Slash, which kills Sunshine. So, we only have Ice Cream to take on his remaining 5 Pokemon. We use Strength, not even taking out half of Charizard's HP, and we're hit hard by a Fire Fang. We use Ice Fang on the next turn, and it KOs. Lance's Ace Dragonite comes in, and it gets outsped and beaten by an Ice Fang. His second Dragonite comes in, suffers the same fate, and so does the third. They are getting creamed left and right. All that's left is Lance's Aerodactyl, but we are out of Ice Fangs. We have to use the weaker Ice Shard. Aerodactyl survives off of seemingly 1 HP, and they use Rock Slide. But Ice Cream survives. Lance tries to heal with a full restore, but Ice Cream does not care for that, and lands an Ice Shard with a higher damage roll, taking out Aerodactyl to win us the fight and the run. What a close call at the end. I was fully expecting to have to spin the wheel again and again until we got a type that could beat the Elite Four and sending half of our Pokemon to their deaths. But in the end, all we needed was the Cream team. I've been Hextasy, and thanks for watching.